South Jersey's home for the Sixers and Flyers.
Yeah!
He scored!
A two-hand jam!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, Monday edition on 97.3 ESPN. Hanging out with you live in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Black Horse Bike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Sixers lose game one, and what on earth happened yesterday? We got to get into that. Bryan Toporek from the NBA podcast also writes for Forbes Sports, NBA contributor, joining us coming up at 6:20 tonight because we got to get into the NBA playoffs. The entire weekend felt like from Friday night through Sunday, just a lot of, well, that was unexpected. Well, that was unexpected. Well, the whole weekend. So we got to get into all of that with Bryan coming up at 6:20 tonight. As always, we take your thoughts and comments throughout the show. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Also, 609-403-0973 is text board. You listen to 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. So let's get into this. The Sixers lost a game. First of all, if you went into that game thinking Joel Embiid was going to play that game, I hope you had money on it. Because I did not think Joel Embiid was going to play in that game at all. I was shocked when he came out there with Triple H with those shirts, which, by the way, why are those shirts not on sale? Hello? I would buy that shirt. Come on. I mean, you got the DX shirt with Joel Embiid and Trust the Process on the back. Come on, man. How does somebody not look at that shirt and say, we can sell a lot of shirts with this? The fact that I haven't seen those shirts on sale everywhere is ridiculous. But that's aside from the point. So Joel Embiid comes out with Triple H. And I'm like, all right, Embiid's going to play. I wasn't expecting this. I also wasn't expecting the Sixers to come out in front of a full house at the Wells Fargo Center and just play like garbage for the first 15 minutes of the game. 9 turnovers in the first quarter, sloppy defense, poor rotations. They looked like they had no energy. You had this huge guest to ring the bell. You had this big thing about second round. The crowd is losing their minds. And you came out there and laid in just a complete dud in the first quarter. You're playing catch up for the next 2 quarters. And then the fourth quarter comes around. You decide to play just arguably the best basketball you played in about 5 games in the NBA postseason. If you would have had half the focus and energy that you had in the fourth quarter, in the first quarter, you probably don't lose that game because you gave up 23s on the night. I don't care if you're a Sixers fan, if you're a Sixers hater. I don't care who you are. The way they play defense for the first 15 minutes of that game and the sloppiness and the patheticness and the lack of juice on offense was a complete just letdown. If you love basketball, that's not what you want to see. And to me, Joel Embiid didn't have to play that game. The fact he did play that game pretty much tells you that he's healthier than we thought. And you know what? If that's the case, great. Good stuff. I'm glad he's healthy because a healthy Joel Embiid means you have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But what it also means is that you can't go out there and have Embiid part of the ringing the bell with Triple H and play that poorly. Now, if the worst quarter of basketball they have the rest of the postseason is that quarter, fine. I can live with that. But it doesn't make it acceptable. It doesn't make it all right. It doesn't make it something that can be okay with, because there is no reality. There is no world in which that is acceptable. And I think that for the Sixers to come out and play that way is incredibly disappointing. And they deserve to lose that game. While it was fun watching them try to fight back and claw back and get back into that game, for me at least, I was completely shocked by the way they came out and played. Just like I was shocked that the night before, I'm watching the Bucks and Nets. James Harden goes out with 48 seconds into the game, and I'm thinking Bucks going to win this game. And then the rest of the game commenced, and Mike James outplayed All-Star Drew Holiday. And Blake Griffin outplayed Brook Lopez. And Giannis seemed like the only guy who cared about actually winning the game on Saturday night. And the Nets went on to win that game. And I was, completely shocked by that too. Because for Harden to go down and the Bucks to not put up a better fight is incredible. And I think there's a lesson to be learned from this. The lesson is that it doesn't matter how great and how talented your best player is. It's about the supporting cast around them. The Hawks hit 20 3-pointers on Sunday afternoon. And all 20 of those were not taken or hit on by Trae Young. It was Bogdanovich. It was a whole cast of characters who were getting in on the action. You look at the Nets game from the day before. What did the Nets show you on Saturday night? Mike James, Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown, Joe Harris. The supporting cast around Durant and Kyrie stepped up. You want to know a big part of the reason why the Sixers lost? It wasn't because Joel Embiid was or wasn't on the floor. It was because the rest of the team around them didn't do their job. Listen to this. The 76ers are 17-0 when Seth Curry has 15 or more points in a game. The 76ers won 30 games this year when Tobias Harris scores at least 20 points and has at least 6 rebounds. But I'm supposed to believe that this was all about Embiid and Trae Young. And if you want to blame Doc Rivers for that game yesterday afternoon, then you and I are going to have a nice little argument. Because the last time I checked, Doc Rivers doesn't make or miss shots. Doc Rivers doesn't have garbage turnovers in very poor circumstances. And I don't care how big and long and athletic the Hawks are. You had multiple days to watch tape and prepare for that. And I feel pretty comfortable saying that Doc Rivers and Sam Cassell and Dave Yeager and Dan Burke and the rest of the Sixers coaching staff are not a bunch of idiots who never watched the Hawks game this year in preparation for this game. I feel pretty comfortable saying the 76ers were prepared, but the players didn't execute. So if you want to win game 2, it all starts on the players getting their heads out of the sand, stop going through the motions, wake up, get some smelling salts, and play with a little more intensity than we saw with the first 15 minutes of that game yesterday. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, we get to your comments a little bit later in the show. Also, text board is open, 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 is the text board for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can comment there. Another point I want to hit on the Sixers, and I'm conflicted on this. I have always said that to me, to win in the modern NBA is to let the best player on the other team do damage, but stop everyone else from having a major impact on the game. And I don't know if that is the answer every time, but I'm willing to let it see it play out because I felt the Sixers gave Trae Young way too many opportunities to get past the perimeter, get into the lane, and dish. And he might not have always gotten the primary assist, but there were many cases he got the secondary assist where it was he drives down the lane, he hits to the corner or hits to the sideline. The guy swings the ball around the key, and the guy gets open, shoots, scores. I just feel like that happened way too many times. Well, it was Gallinari, whether it was Herter, whether it was Lou Williams, whether it was Bogdanovich, whether it was Collins driving down the lane on a screen, whatever it was, it just seemed like they allowed Trae Young too much freedom to be the catalyst for that team. He is the superstar. He is the game breaker for that team. And if you let him dictate the terms of engagement, he's going to beat you. And for you to give up 128 points to a Hawks team that had trouble scoring 100 versus the Knicks, wake up, 76ers. You got to do something different. And you started doing something different in the second half. But at that point, it was basically too late. You dug yourself too deep of a hole. You gave the Hawks too much confidence and momentum. And at some point, it's on the players to do the job. And listen, I'm not saying it has to be like this, but if you're a teammate of, for example, Danny Green, and you're seeing Danny get just totally roasted on plays, don't you have to do something different to help Danny? Or maybe go to the coaches and say, Danny don't got it right now. You got to have a different coach. Or this is on the players to maybe try to do something like, listen, we've all played pickup basketball, all right? Whether we played in high school, junior high, or just casually. We've all played sports in our lifetime at some point or another if you look at the game the way I do. And I know from my experience, whether it's street ball, whether it's high school basketball, if you know that you or your teammate is getting cooked, it's up to you to do something about it. You can't always depend on the coach to make a change or make an alignment. No, at some point, it's on the player to have enough basketball IQ. For Ben Simmons, for example, who's supposed to be the defensive player of the year, right? He's the best defensive player in basketball. It's on him to maybe do something different the next time they come down the floor. If Trae Young is having that kind of impact, it's on Simmons and Embiid or somebody to step up and say, we're going to change the defensive alignment. Call out a play. Make a change. Go to his zone. I don't care where it is. Try something. And for 15 minutes, they were just like, well, this stinks. We're getting run over. Man, I got punched in the face. How do you feel? I feel great. I don't know. What are you doing out there? So you got to give me a little more heart in the next game. You got to give me a little more one. You got to give a little bit more effort. You got to give me a lot more of a lot more in the next game to win game 2. We could break down exactly what they should or shouldn't do, but there's a lot of things they can do differently. They can attack Trae Young on the defensive end, make him play more defense. That's one thing they can do. They can apply more traps. They can change the defensive look more often. They could do a better job shifting on the defensive end. They could be more efficient offensively. They could stop making risky passes and bizarre. I don't even know what that one pass from Embiid was. I mean, that was I was confused what he was trying to do there, but you gotta be better in every facet of the game because you're not playing the Wizards anymore. You're playing a team with a superstar and a good roster around him. All right, coming up next, we'll break more of the NBA playoffs down with Bryan Toporek from the NBA podcast and Forbes Sports. We'll get to your thoughts and comments a little bit later in the show as we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can comment on the show if you're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM. The text board is open at 609-403-0973. Also, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Text board is open 609-403-0973 here with yours truly, Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, where you can customize all your alerts. Get all the news you need on the Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and Flyers, and local high school sports right with the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and 97.3ESPN.com.
The NBA playoffs continue. Durant and Kyrie lead the Nets to a Game 1 win in Brooklyn. Can Giannis and the Bucks bounce back in Game 2? Coverage begins tonight at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
The NBA playoffs, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM. Your exclusive home for the NBA Finals. Do you have 3 ex-wives?
You asked for it. You got it. Fast Track Checkout at either Matt Blatt Kia location. Buy it your way. Complete your purchase online or have us deliver it during the Trade Up to a Kia sales event at Matt Blatt Kia in Egg Harbor Township or Tom's River. 0 money down and 0% financing for up to 60 months on every 2021 Kia Soul, Sportage, or Forte. Plus, we need your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Get out of that old car you hate with 0 down payment and 0% APR financing available for up to 60 months. Try Fast Track Checkout. Purchase completely online and have us deliver right to your home or office. Only at Matt Blatt Kia, where you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on 1667 for 1,000 borrowed. Negative equity financed into new loan. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Expires 7/6/2021. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. And now on Route 37 in Tom's River.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As always, get to your thoughts and comments a little bit later in the show at 609-403-0973. You're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can see our next guest joining us on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline, the NBA podcast, Forbes Sports NBA writer at B Toporek on Twitter. He is Bryan Toporek here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Bryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I mean, obviously the Sixers threw out a bunch of garbage out there for about 15 minutes yesterday. And before we get to any specific game, I feel like the theme of from Friday through Sunday afternoon, from all those games, was if your supporting cast shows up, you're probably going to win the game. If you're hoping that one guy does it, unless his name is Kawhi, you're not winning the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to be actually pretty happy with what Seth Curry provided offensively. But yes, as you said, the Sixers, that first half effort was awful, to put it politely. And I think, I'm strangely optimistic about the series moving forward, considering they just lost game one and have lost home court advantage, because I do think they've figured some things out in the second half, and it's good that they were willing to change what they did once they saw, all right, our original game plan did not work. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's not beat our heads against the wall and keep trying this. So now moving forward, I think they do have some counter punches that they can throw.
Well, here's the thing with the Sixers, Bryan. I'm not even fully sure if the game plan was a problem. I almost feel like the problem was the players didn't know what they were doing. You have this big thing where Embiid comes. First of all, I didn't even think Embiid was going to play yesterday. I'll be honest. My theory was Embiid's going to miss at least game one. But he comes out there with Triple H. They have this huge, opening of the ringing the bell. The crowd's going nuts. And you have 9 turnovers in the first quarter. Sloppy defense. You're not even getting around on rotations. Dudes just standing around like, oh, why did that happen? I don't know. Guys look at each other like, why'd you throw that pass? And it's like, maybe the game plan wasn't the problem. Maybe the players just had to get their head out of the sand and realize, oh, wait, this is an NBA basketball game. We're in the playoffs.
Right. I think this is where playing the Wizards in the first round hurt them, because the Wizards are not a playoff caliber team. So this is like, this is the first time they actually got challenged in the playoffs. The Hawks are coming out of a series against the Knicks where they had to play hard the whole time. The Sixers could go about 80-85% for most of that Wizards series. It didn't kill them if they didn't execute their defensive game plan on a possession-by-possession basis. I do think defensively, at least, the plan of putting Danny Green on Trae Young to start, Doc knows Danny Green can't cover Trae Young. He said that type of player Danny has struggled with. But, he's also said he's reluctant to put Ben on that type of guard right away because he doesn't want Ben to get into foul trouble, considering how important he is offensively. So I thought I was with you. I thought the Sixers might hold Embiid out for game one. And if they did, I thought Thibault was probably going to start again so he could draw the Trae Young assignment. I think moving forward, Simmons and Thibault, you have two of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Trae Young is the head of that hawk snake. And if you can cut him off, you're not going to stop him. You're not going to make him get 7 points on a given night. Like, he's going to get 15 to 20 at least. He's going to get somewhere around 6, 7, 8, 9 assists. But if you can make him be inefficient, that's where you can actually make up some ground. And I think in the second half, they were much better in that regard because they were more willing to put Simmons on Trey right away. But then again, he did pick up 2 quick fouls. So, Doc's fear there is legitimate.
You opened the door for me to ask you this question here. And that is, I've always said that in today's NBA, doesn't mean I'm right, but this is my opinion, that you can't stop the best scorers on the planet. You're not stopping Durant. You're not stopping Trey Young. You're not stopping Bradley Beal. But you can stop everybody else. There's another argument that says if you cut off the head of the snake, Trey Young, like you mentioned, and you say everyone else beat us, we're not letting Trey Young beat us. So what is the best strategy for the Hawks? Is it to say Trey Young, go get 40 points, we're going to stop everyone else from scoring? Or is it to limit Trey Young and dare the rest of the team to beat you?
Well, you either have to stop Trey Young as a scorer or as a passer, and they did neither of those things yesterday. So if you're not going to completely shut him down, and I think it's a fair question, which approach is preferable, letting Trey go for 40 or stopping him as a playmaker, or focusing on his scoring and letting the other guys go. The problem is, the Hawks have a lot of other guys who could score, Bogdanovich and John Collins in particular. DeAndre Hunter as well, who didn't even play in game 1. Who knows what his status is moving forward. Kevin Huerter came off the bench and had 15 points. So there is some danger to, this is not a weak supporting cast that the Hawks have. So I would lean toward make sure Trey isn't going as a facilitator and focus on that supporting cast. And, if Trey goes for 35 or 40, like we saw a game, earlier this year against the Wizards where Bradley Beal scored 60 and the Sixers still won. So I think this is going to be a high scoring series, but I think the Sixers have the personnel to at least cause the Hawks to be more inefficient than they were yesterday.
Bryan Toporek joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. He's the co-host of the NBA podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at @BToporek on Twitter. So how about the other question people have had? I've heard a lot of people say, why didn't the Sixers attack Trey Young more? Why didn't you make him work defensively? Now, that's a great idea. But the question is, Bryan, how do you go about doing that? Because I feel like Nate McMillan isn't stupid. I feel like the Hawks aren't a bunch of idiots. They have an idea that they've gone this far with protecting him from getting into foul trouble too often. So how do you actually go about attacking Trey Young?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. That is the common refrain of how you make Trey Young at least more of a liability, especially in the playoffs. But I would argue that the Sixers, outside of Tyrese Maxey, don't really have the right personnel to attack Trey Young, like an off-the-dribble game. Like, Danny Green off the dribble you don't want that. That is not efficient offense for the Sixers. So whoever Trey's guarding, if it's Danny or if it's Seth, I would run those guys around a ton of screens and try to open them up for some threes. Because I think both guys, Danny had a brutal game yesterday on both ends of the court, but both guys missed some shots yesterday that they normally hit. So if he's guarding one of them, that's how I think the Sixers try to do it. If he's guarding Maxey off the bench, that's when you can attack him off the dribble as a ball handler. But I don't think Danny or even Seth, honestly, it's just not. It's not going to be efficient offense for the Sixers.
Now, the other flip of the coin is, what do you say to the people who blame the game yesterday on Doc Rivers, who are saying, I've seen this before, he messed up the Clippers? Was yesterday's game a Doc Rivers fault game, or was it a player's fault game? Was that an everybody fault game? And do you think Doc Rivers is a problem moving forward?
I mean, the question all year, Doc was running the all bench lineup throughout the regular season. We saw it in the Wizards series as well. And the question all year was, once they go in the playoffs, get deeper in the playoffs, start playing good teams, is he going to keep going back to that? We saw that in the first quarter. The starters get down early and he goes to the all bench lineup and they just get their brains beaten in. And now all of a sudden the Sixers are facing a 20-point deficit. So I don't think this was Doc's finest game as the Sixers head coach, but I don't think all of the blame falls on him. I think you said it well. The blame's pretty much on everyone, the players, the coaches. Embiid, I think, played as well as he possibly could have on a torn meniscus. If you get 39 points on only 21 shots, 14 to 15 from the line, part of this scheme, again, I think having him drop against Trey early on in the game, I don't know if that's just sparing his energy, or they're trying to not have him move as much on that meniscus. They're not trying to have him go out to the perimeter and blitz on pick and rolls. We'll see what happens moving forward there, but I'm not going to blame Embiid for what happened yesterday. Everyone else, I think you can look in the mirror and point to something that every single one of the players did that they could improve upon moving forward.
If the Sixers are to win game 2, the player not named Embiid for the Sixers who has to step up the most is who?
I think it's got to be Simmons, and I think it has to be Simmons on defense more than offense. I know that I'm sure Ben Simmons free throws are going to be a topic of conversation from now until the playoffs end. And, yes, that contributed to the loss, him going 3 of 10 from the line, but it's, they also were +4 with him on the floor. So it's not, again, the all bench lineup, I think, shares a lot more of the blame than any of the starters for what happened yesterday. But I do think we're going to need to see a lot more Ben Simmons on Trae Young defensively. And we need to make sure that Ben Simmons doesn't get into foul trouble, because if he does, that's going to affect what they do offensively as well.
Bryan Toporek joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you check out the NBA podcast. Also check out Bryan's work over at Forbes Sports. Follow him on Twitter at @BToporek on Twitter. Let's flip over to the rest of the playoffs here. One of my other surprises of the weekend. Was I surprised James Harden got injured? No, because it's a soft tissue injury. I had been saying that I had no confidence that all three of those guys would be out there for every this postseason anyway. So I was right about that. What I was wrong about was that outside of Giannis, the rest of the Bucks decided not to play. And Mike James, who hasn't played in the NBA majority of the year, he's overseas. I think Israel, I think he was playing in. He went out there and outplayed Drew Holiday. So what the heck happened to the Bucks on Saturday night? I can't believe that they had a golden opportunity. Harden's out. The rug is pulled out from under the Nets. And then Giannis was like, let's go, boys. It was like the rest of the team was just like, you go ahead.
Yeah. I don't want to say it was a must win because Harden's out for game 2 as well. And I can't imagine he's going to be back anytime soon after aggravating this hamstring again. So there's a chance James Harden doesn't play in this series at all moving forward, in which case, the Bucks blew a golden opportunity in game 1, but they're probably going to have another one, at least in game 2, and probably moving forward as well. It was just a brutal game all around. I mean, every nice thing people said about the Bucks in the first round series, said about Coach Bud and all of the adjustments that he made against Miami in the first round, it all just went out the window in this series. Giannis played 35 minutes in a 48-minute game that Kyrie Irving played 45. Kevin Durant played 40. Giannis, as you said, was the best player for the Bucks by far. It is just unconscionable that we keep having this conversation with Mike Budenholzer. And we saw it in Miami against the first round. Game 1, those guys all played 40 minutes in regulation. So going against a better Bucks team, I just don't. It's like, who is to blame for what happened to the Bucks? Pretty much everyone but Giannis. The coaching staff, the players. Chris Middleton had a brutal shooting game. 6 of 23 from the field, only 13 points. He's typically very efficient, so I think that will get better. And now that they've seen, okay, Mike James is going to be the surprise starter in place of Harden most likely, now that they know that and can go back and game plan for that, I think they'll be caught less off guard. I think it was honestly a situation where the Harden injury should have affected the Nets more than the Bucks, but it might have affected the Bucks more than the Nets because you start PJ Tucker in place of Dante DiVincenzo, which is already a bold gambit for Budenholzer, and then losing Harden right away. It's like, well, now what do we do?
The other thing that's interesting is that people forget that the Nets played so much of the year without Harden and Durant and Kyrie. You almost wonder if they're just used to them not being out there kind of thing. And like you said, the starting of PJ Tucker was a bold move. I mean, when I saw that PJ Tucker was out there, I was like, really? PJ Tucker? Like, all right. I mean, we'll see. But that gets back to what you said. Like, Budenholzer makes these strange decisions. And you got to wonder, like, the first three coaches did not be out of jobs. None of them were fired, right? It was Brad Stevens moving to the front office. It was Stotts in Portland parting ways. It was Clifford saying, I don't want to be part of a rebuild. I'm out of here. You almost have to wonder, if the Bucks don't win this series, is Budenholzer the first guy like outright fired?
Oh, I think so, especially if Harden doesn't play in the rest of the series. It seemed like Budenholzer was already – his job security was tenuous last year coming out of the bubble. And, I don't know how Giannis feels about him, but presumably they figured, let's give this one more shot in a, somewhat normalized playoffs, and let's get – we don't want to have a coaching change right before this Giannis Supermax decision, so let's just keep stability as much as possible. Giannis is now signed. Drew's now signed. Chris Middleton's now signed. They've got this core in place for the next couple of years. This will be the most attractive coaching job in the league if it opens up. So they will have their choice of candidates. Yeah, if Bud doesn't make it out of this series, especially if Harden is out for most, if not all of it, I just cannot see a way he keeps his job.
And the coaching thing is fascinating to me, Bryan, because I talked about this on my show on Saturday, and that is, this is the weirdest offseason for coaching I've ever seen, because, last year it was Alvin Gentry, 2 days later, fired. Brett Brown, 2 days later, fired. Like, get off the plane, you're out of town. Like, dudes are getting fired left and right. And now this offseason, if Budenholzer's the first guy who's like outright fired, you have to wonder, what is the state of coaching? Because after what Mark Cuban said, that the grass isn't always greener, I don't believe in firing the coach. There's not always a better guy out there. And you're like, but the Mavs haven't been out of the first round since they won an NBA championship. So it's like, what is the state of coaching in the NBA that coaches are just like, you know what, I don't want to be at my job anymore? Or in Brad Stevens' case, it's, I'm one of the most successful in the Eastern coach of the Eastern Conference who has not gotten to an NBA Finals, 3 conference finals, but I'm burned out. Like, what is the state of NBA coaching right now?
I think this year in particular, dating back to the bubble, has put an undue strain on everyone, like having to come in on your days off for daily COVID testing. There's just a lot of extra that you didn't have to go through in a normal season. So I bet players, coaches, everyone to a T is probably burnt out on this season, could use a nice long off season. Unfortunately, they're going to have a shorter than usual off season, which is not ideal, especially for the guys going to the Olympics. But yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. It's just the Stevens thing, I think, is its own topic. But, I mean, there were questions. I saw that Rick Carlisle was getting asked questions like, do you think you're the right coach for the Mavericks? It's like, Rick Carlisle is a top 5 coach in the NBA. If we're asking about Rick Carlisle, there are very few guys who should feel confident in their job security moving forward.
So we have 4 teams left in the Western Conference for the playoffs, and none of them, if I remember correctly, have ever won a championship. It's the Nuggets, it's the Jazz, it's the Clippers, it's the Suns. You have 4 teams that have never won a ring. So of those 4 teams, is there one that you think is best equipped to win a championship in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, it'll sound weird to say this because they're the only team that went 7 games in the first round, but it feels like it's the Clippers. I think getting over the mental hurdle of getting down 0-2 in that series, and then game 3, the Mavericks jump out to a huge lead at home. That easily could have just been Clippers crumble, go into a pivotal offseason. Kawhi's a free agent. This whole thing is blowing apart. They stuck together. Kawhi is just absolutely unreal. Paul George is shaking off the playoff P designation, and just having 2 elite 2-way wing scorers is typically the easiest way to win a championship in the NBA. So they have that personnel. They've got a strong supporting cast. I like their matchup against the Jazz, especially Mike Conley's nursing this hamstring injury. We don't know, presumably he's going to play, but we don't know how effective he's going to be. I don't think the Jazz, they're not going to run their offense through Gobert, so they're not going to be able to take advantage necessarily of the Clippers' lack of size. And then I think other than that, it's the Suns. I think, they're going against a Nuggets team. The backcourt matchup in this Nuggets-Suns series is Chris Paul and Devin Booker versus Austin Rivers and Facundo Campazzo. I love Nikola Jokic. I think he deserves to be the MVP this year. I think he's going to win his matchup with DeAndre Ayton, but there is no way that is as lopsided as the Suns versus the Nuggets backcourt. So I think we're getting Clippers Suns in the Western Conference Finals. From there, it's just hard to bet. I know Chris Paul has been in the playoffs, but a lot of these other guys are new. This is their first run. It's hard to bet on that versus, especially a Kawhi Leonard, who has been on that journey now multiple times and has the experience, especially coming back in this Maverick series as well. So I would bet on Clippers representing the West. But honestly, the only team that would really surprise me is the Nuggets.
He's Bryan Toporek. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at @Toporek. He's the co-host of the NBA podcast. Go like, subscribe, download, do all the things that you do on your cell phones, whether you have an Apple or a Android. I know it's a little different for everybody, but just go check it out. The NBA podcast. It's always a great listen. And of course, as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Bryan, great stuff today. Appreciate you jumping on.
Of course. Anytime, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get to your guys' thoughts and comments next. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Also see you guys watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Douglas, Rodney, Kyle, get to all of your comments coming up next as well here on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Sixers playoff basketball tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McInnes, calling all the exciting Sixers playoff action.
He got the rebound, and he puts it in, and he was fouled by Capella.
It's Sixers Hawks Game 2 tomorrow night. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN FM.
Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, and online at mattblattnissan.com. Help us celebrate when you get out of that old car, truck, or SUV and into a brand new Nissan with the Matt Blatt Nissan Fast Track Checkout. Available online at mattblattnissan.com. Our non-touch delivery and electronic paperwork ensures your safety comes first. Plus, Matt Blatt Nissan wants your trade. Bring it in today and help us celebrate the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, or visit us online, mattblattnissan.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Get your thoughts and comments just a bit at 609-403-0973 is text where we are also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show. A little breaking news that just came down involving the Sixers. Nothing overly serious. Actually, something a little bit comical, actually. So you may or may not have seen that Seth Curry made some social media comments about his brother, Seth. You know, Seth, they're brothers. You might have heard of him before. And Daryl Morey basically made a side comment and be like, hey, you know, you could join the Sixers or be here or something like that. And the NBA fined Daryl Morey about $75,000 for violating the league's anti-tampering rule. The Sixers were also fined $75,000 for Morey's conduct, is what the press release says. So while it's cool to see Daryl Morey very active on social media, it lost him and the 76ers $75,000 each from the league. Oh my goodness. What a strange world we live in. So you make a comment on social media, it's called tampering. You get fined. Welcome to pro sports in the 21st century. Such a strange thing. Let's see here. I'm trying to see because the whole point that Daryl Morey said about Stephen Curry, for those who didn't see, Steph Curry basically made an Instagram post about his brother, and then Daryl Morey came out and said you should join him, and that's what cost him $75,000. So, but you know what? Listen, you gotta love the guy. Daryl Morey is afraid of nobody and nothing and nada, and he's gonna do his thing, and that's why you have confidence that he is going to be on this team a long time. By the way, a little Phillies news. Scott Kingery is no longer on the Phillies 40-man roster. He has cleared waivers, and he is now at AAA. So in order for him to be brought up back to the major leagues, Scott Kingery would have to be added back to the 40-man roster, and a player has to be removed from the 40-man. So Scott Kingery's his career is going downhill right now. So okay, for some of you guys, 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Also, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll get the comments there. I get to the comments the order they came in. Douglas Finn on Facebook says, go Sixers, win game 2, must play better D and have better ball movement. I get you on the better ball movement, but it's more than better ball movement. It's smart ball movement. It's the fact that you don't make certain passes. You know what I mean? There's a point in time where you don't make certain plays, and they were trying to force things at times that night. But Douglas, I think the Sixers will win game 2. They will look better. I feel pretty confident in saying that. 609-403-0973. Mike in the Villa says, Josh, went to the game last night, and it was awful. I mean, they came out with no intensity at all. I felt like that was the problem more than anything else. Mike from the Villas goes on to say, if they would have came back to win the game, everyone's talking about at least that I know, and they took people out at the end of the game, but it looked like they were a high school team at the beginning. It was awful. Yeah, Mike, I was exasperated watching that game at my house yesterday. I mean, I'm just watching. I'm like, what is going on out here? I mean, the crowd's into it. The crowd's going nuts. I mean, Mike, you probably one of the people screaming at the top of your lungs, losing your mind, having a good time. And the Sixers came out and just were like flat. It was nuts. Over on YouTube, Rodney says, "What's up, Josh? I was waiting for Triple H to get out there and guard Trae Young, but surely he would have been fouled out about 2 minutes." Triple H would have actually committed what the NBA calls a flagrant foul, like an 80s foul, and he would have been thrown out of the game. He wouldn't have fouled out. He would have been thrown out of the game after one hit. He probably would have clotheslined him or something. Kyle, watching on YouTube, says, Thibault needs to be the one to guard Trae at all times. Kyle, I like the idea of Thibault on Young, but I don't agree at all times, because I think that the best way to handle players like Trae Young is give him multiple looks. Thibault's on a couple times, then Milton, and then Hill, and then Simmons, and then Green. Switch it up. Make him see different bodies. I remember for years, the way teams would guard Kobe in those years after Shaq was they would throw tons of guys. It was the Raja Bells of the world, and it was, all these random dudes who would be throwing out Kobe, not because they were actually stopping him, but because the theory was, well, if you can make Kobe work a little extra hard, it wastes possessions and it forces them out of the rhythm of their offense. So I think that's more of the strategy, in my opinion. Great stuff from everybody listening to the show. Thanks to Bryan Toporek for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. This is Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night. See you tomorrow.
Jess's 30-minute bike boot camp? I guess it's that kind of day.
Are you ready for a total body workout, Peloton fam?
I am.
We'll start the class on the bike and then move to the floor. Let's get it.
With Peloton instructors right in your home,
Are you feeling it yet? Let's keep pushing for 5.
you have motivation that's ready when you are.
Clip off that bike and meet me on the mat for lunges.
I got this.
You showed up today, Peloton. Who's feeling sweaty and strong?
Definitely me.
Tap into your motivation at onepeloton.com.